Okay, well, hello and welcome to Skeptarchy. My name is Cory.
And I'm Felicia.
And we're just the two of us this evening, it looks like. So
yeah.
I'm not sure how much we have to talk about. I didn't really prepare anything this evening.
Oh, shoot. I had a specific thing I wanted to talk about, and now, of course, I'm blanking because I was trying to get everything else ready. What did I have up? Hold on. I'm sure I can find it.
Sure. I guess I did have something a couple weeks ago when I was curious about, because we had talked about ADHD and Kevin has ADHD and Dell has been diagnosed. And I know a few people that have ADHD to some degree or another. And, but one of the things that I've often heard is that, there's a lot of people who think that it's not really a thing or that it's way overblown and there's way too many people who have it or so that it's basically meaningless. So I was really curious and I tried to look up if there was any studies on whether or not this, it was true, whether or not it was true that there was an overdiagnosis problem with ADHD.
Right.
And I found an article that, like an actual study, a meta study.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this too.
I don't have it in front of me right this second, obviously, because I didn't remember it.
You know what we could talk about is the Biden administration's failure to actually follow through on anything with their big new bill, Build Back Better, and how they're dropping free community college.
Of course.
Yeah. And they're dropping like a bunch of stuff from like the climate change stuff because Cinema and Manchin said they don't like it.
Right.
And, Biden's like, oh, they just didn't like it. Joe's a good person. It's just, and it's like, and yet I still see, a lot of liberal types defending Biden.
Right.
And the Democrats as a whole, and they're just like, just Manchin's bad. And it's like, no, if they wanted to change their minds, they could.
Yeah, that's right. You could offer them things. You could make deals. Like, there's no reason why Biden has to be like stymied by these two people.
The president has the power to get people killed. Like, you don't think that he has power to change people's minds if he wants to?
That's right.
I am not suggesting that they be killed, everyone. I'm just saying, like, the president is intensely powerful.
Although that would certainly solve a problem.
It's just that the president, the Democrats are intensely powerful. They have methods. People keep saying to me, like, they don't want to lose Virginia to a Republican, and that state is so conservative. And I'm like, well, actually, if you look up polling in Virginia, $15 minimum wage has a majority support. Climate change is a very important issue to voters there. Some really progressive policies are very popular in Virginia. Medicare for all, hugely popular. And I understand that, like, people are like, in Virginia, people won't vote for someone who's going to take their guns. It's like, okay, find a progressive that's not interested in liberal solutions to guns.
Yeah, that's right. Like, just then push the things that are popular. Like, really focus on them. Like,
well, and a lot of people who like guns they do think that gun control is necessary. They just don't like the Democrats' positions on guns because they're either useless or they target the wrong people.
Yeah.
They're like, it's not that they're so afraid of having gun control. It's that they think, and they're right. I mean, assault weapons bans are dumb. They don't really do anything.
Right.
They're aesthetic. And that's not an effective way to deal with gun violence. So, why are we, a lot of people are critical of Democrats for pushing shit that doesn't work. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's right. That sounds like a good criticism.
I know a lot of people who are really progressive, but like guns to, you know, all the way to anarchist, and they're on board with better gun stuff.
Yeah,
just not
that's right.
what the Democrats say.
Yeah, because usually like stuff like background checks is almost like a 90% popularity, right? Like when actually polled. Like maybe that's something you could just pitch and say, hey, this is the only thing we're doing. We're not doing any of this ban stuff. We're just
and like I understand that guns is a really important issue. I do. And I understand that, but I think that if somebody wanted to run in Virginia and be a progressive, they could say, I'm not so interested in gun laws as I am creating systems that keep people from getting too desperate.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And I think that would resonate with a lot of people in West Virginia based on polling.
Yeah, you would sure think so.
But no, the Democrats don't want someone more progressive to run in Virginia. They don't want to primary Manchin. They don't want to get him out. It's not that they think that a progressive could lose, because they know that if they just put money behind somebody, they'll win.
Yeah.
But that's not what they want. And I think people need to stop buying this bullshit line from Biden that, oh, nothing I can do. That's just not true. Like,
right.
You're the most powerful person on the planet. If one guy and one woman are standing in your way, you can do something about it, my man.
Yeah. Seems a little like scapegoaty. I mean, obviously I'm not a fan of Manchin or Sinema because
obviously,
you know, they are currently being the ones that are like saying they don't want the things that everybody else wants.
Right.
But it's definitely the party construction, or like the people in the party, they could easily tell them, hey, we need this to win.
Yeah.
If you want us to stay in power, then you have to get on board.
They don't seem to actually have internalized that.
Yeah.
The Democrats seem to for them,
they don't care about winning, apparently.
It's better for them to lose majority than it is to lose donor support.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, I did political fundraising. You should hear how people talk about this stuff. Like,
yeah.
People don't want to support candidates that, rich people won't support candidates that they think will not support their wealth. I can't tell you how many, wealthy Democrats that I ran into that were that they wouldn't donate to my candidate because their money had no influence because he was independently wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be like, well, I just have some concern. And, these are the same rich houses that, you know, would put Black Lives Matter signs in their windows. But, there is no black people in their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if somebody, spends too long on the bench in front of their business, they call the police.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, private pools and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just private pools. I mean private pools that are freshwater filtered.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not interested in empowering people. They're interested in having more tokens of people, right? Mm-hmm. More women CEOs.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We need it's a what is the line that everybody said when Biden was putting his cabinet together? It was something like you need a person of color who's bombing other countries.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be just your standard white guy, because that's just, that's white supremacy.
Right. Well, and, I'm not going to say that I am an expert in her, but the first Native American woman to the State Department? Can't remember. The one that has to do with the land management and stuff.
Okay.
She has actually pushed for a lot of things. And she already ran into conflict with the Biden administration. Mm. And like, the thing is, like, she doesn't really have the power to do what she wants to do. And I think she knew that when she took that position. But yeah, like, if she was put in a position that, like, if she was any threat to Biden's overall power or the status of the wealthy or anything, she wouldn't have got that assignment. Luckily, native managed lands is good. And we actually had national monuments that had native protections restored. Trump, here in Utah, we had them, Bears Ears and Grand Staircase. Okay. And they had Native American hunting and wood gathering rights protected, but only for Native Americans. Okay. Trump drastically reduced the size of those monuments because for oil drilling. Of course. And there was several Native Americans, not a majority, not even close. There's several Native Americans who he got on board to say things like, oh, but we don't want our wood gathering rights taken away. And we don't want our hunting rights taken away. And that was never a threat. It was only a threat from Trump. Like, it was never, that was already written into it. Like, Trump couldn't have affected those. Right. But but that was the threat that they said, is that if they keep it this way, they're going to lose their wood gathering rights and their hunting rights.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
it sounds similar to like, we have lots of land, we have lots of unceded land in Canada. And of course, there's pipelines that want to go through there, and we have like companies that want to do forestry or whatever. And you always do get the odd person who is of Indigenous descent to say, who is Indigenous to say, like, yeah, we're on board with this, of course.
Yeah, of course. There's always somebody. There's always somebody who's willing to be bought. Like,
yeah, but you gotta, like, is it the majority of them?
Or very possibly ideologically convinced.
Right. Yeah.
Which, sure.
Seems less likely than...
You know what? That's something I've been thinking of. Okay. There's a lot of this hand-wringing from moderates and conservatives that academia is so left-biased.
Right, of course.
Particularly in things like psychology, sociology, philosophy. Okay. And they say left-biased, right? But the thing I keep thinking about is, like, why does no one ever just say, what if the reason that no one in philosophy is conservative? Like, there was a study recently, and 1% of philosophers said that they were very conservative. And it was like, something like 70% called themselves very liberal. And it's like, well, I mean, you should have asked. Because, like, there are a fair amount of leftist philosophers, right? Yeah. And then, like, I know socialist philosophers who also call themselves liberal, and I'm like, yeah, I guess you can do that. Like, they're like, oh yeah, liberal except for the free market, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, it's like, really interesting that the people who study thinking are not conservative. They
aren't, and it's been a trend for a minute. Yeah. And I go, okay, so, but why does no one say, like, you'll even hear it from some people, like, oh yeah, I do want more conservatives in sociology, right?
No, of course not. Why would you want that?
Well, I kind of understand what they're saying. Because, okay, so some of them are like, oh, we'd love to test their questions. We'd love to. Which, of course, they would, right? Yeah. Or philosophy. Yeah, let's sit down and investigate these ideas.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing is, I don't think that conservatism holds up to scrutiny.
Go figure. Yeah.
And I think, like, people, like, I don't know why we can't use that as evidence. Like, like, people don't sit there and say that there's a huge vaccine bias. I mean, anti-vaxxers do, but you don't find moderate people saying that medicine has a vaccine bias.
No, that's right.
You don't find moderate people saying, medicine has a like antibiotics bias. You know what I mean? Like, you don't hear them saying stuff like that. And you'll hear people bring up, are you familiar with the replication crisis?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a real problem.
Yeah.
And these very concerned moderates will always say things like, but in the social sciences, there's the replication crisis. And it's like, yeah. And in all, yeah, that was weird. In all the sciences, there's a replication crisis. They're like, well,
that's the thing.
Not all of them equally. And I go, oh, no, you're right. One of the ones that's particularly bad, one of the very worst ones, is medical research. Yet I don't hear you throwing out all of medical science.
Yeah, that's right.
And like, people seem to really misunderstand what the replication crisis is. It is not that there is no evidence for anything. It does not mean that that wide consensus is without merit. That's not what that means.
No.
The replication crisis is for smaller stuff. It is for things. It's that studies with smaller results aren't getting replications done.
Yeah.
A lot of these studies we actually just don't need to do replications for, because most scientists and most lay people, when they look at the metrics of a study, they can tell you if it's going to be replicated or not. Lay people are bad at it, or not bad at it. Yeah. They're less good at it, but most lay people can look at a study and go, oh, that's not getting replicated. It's easy enough to evaluate what kind of studies were badly done to know that it wasn't good enough to replicate, right? Like when I say it's not getting replicated, it's not that you couldn't do it again. It's just that when replication happens, the results are going to be different. Yeah, very different. The conclusions reached were bad.
Yeah.
The problem with the replication crisis is, like, researchers aren't getting funded to do that. There's so much pressure in the medical field, in psychology, in the social sciences to publish. It's in all the sciences again.
Yeah.
There's no funding for replication but there's very little, and in certain ones it's very little.
Yeah.
And yet you always hear that the replication crisis is bad in the social sciences. And you don't hear about medicine, even though that's one of the very worst ones. I do believe it's worse in medicine than in the social sciences, if not just as bad.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. Medicine, it's a real problem.
I've heard that there's like, when I first heard about the replication crisis, I heard about it in terms of like physics, actually, because it was like there was new studies all the time on new ideas, trying to push forward new stuff. And it was never, like you say, never funded to try and show that was true through another means.
Yeah.
So when you get that, you're lucky, actually. Yeah.
So there are people working on doing more replications. It's still not enough. Like I said, since there's so much pressure to publish bad studies, not everything getting published needs replication. It just doesn't. Yeah, we can look at them and go, that's not worth even investigating. And that's a problem within funding under a capitalist structure, where it's just about publishing in order to basically buy your legitimacy. Yeah, that's right. Instead of doing less studies, but that are more beneficial, right? The other side of that is, so if we could say cut in half, which is, I believe, what it's about how many studies we don't even need to bother replicating, is half, or attempting to replicate, I should say. So if we could cut half of those, already that's a big help. Right. We get rid of predatory journals, pay to play. That would, if we removed a capitalist incentive here, that might help. But then if you say that we should remove a profit incentive, people will say that that's leftist and you're biased because of your ideology, rather than just saying like, no, the profit incentive is motivating this, they'll say, "Oh, that's just your ideology." It's a non-falsifiable thing. No one who disagrees with them can have a critique to actually solve these, because the solutions usually come from a non-capitalistic system, an approach, and that's ideological, and therefore they will say that it's false. They will say that it's circular reasoning, but no, they're the ones doing the circular reasoning. It's you'll see from the right often CRT promotes socialism, and it's like, is it because socialism would make it so we could actually address more racial inequality? But if it comes to this conclusion that socialism good, it's immediately something they have to reject. And that's a problem. Yeah. It's not a problem that the social sciences confirm more and more left policies, or that confirm that cooperation offers more solutions than competition. That's not ideological based. What if these people in the social sciences, in philosophy, are going more and more left? Because that's what the evidence shows. And that does not seem to be something we can even talk about. People will not entertain the idea. Yeah. Even people who seem to think, who lean left will be like, no,
that can't be it, eh?
we definitely need more conservatives. I'm like, how can you get more conservatives in these fields if by doing the studies, they cannot remain conservative?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it.
Right. Thanks, bro. My cat jumping up.
The trouble with being conservative is that it is counter to the evidence and counter to logic.
Yeah, it's counter to reality. I'm sorry.
So there is no way that they can justify staying that way.
Mm-mm. Well, you hear people liberals will say things like, there's nothing wrong with being conservative. And it's like, yes, there is. It's just wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with being a monarchist. Yes, there is.
There's nothing wrong with being wrong per se, I guess.
Right. There's nothing wrong with being incorrect. I believe that's the word wrong. As in, okay, maybe you're not a bad person if you're a conservative, but you're wrong.
Still incorrect. You're wrong,
incorrect. And you get that a lot. I heard somebody saying there's nothing wrong with being fiscally conservative or fiscally responsible. Come on, camera. And I was like, okay, but you got this? No? Maybe if I turn on a light. Do you like my animal show that I got in the background?
Yeah, it's awesome.
There we go.
You're running a pet shelter there.
I have 3 animals.
That's awesome.
And they like hanging out with me while I do stuff. So, there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with being fiscally responsible. And I said, okay, but conservatives aren't. They never have been. Right. They go, oh, but they would be if they were really conservative. I said, no. That is just you're confusing rhetoric with ideology.
Yeah, that's right.
The rhetoric is that they're fiscally responsible, but if they really were fiscally responsible, they would support UBI, universal housing, universal food stamps, universal medicine, right? They would, because those things are
defunding the police.
Yeah, these things are actually less expensive and have better outcomes for productivity and innovation.
Yeah,
but they don't support those things.
You cannot say that you're fiscally responsible while also supporting trillions of dollars going into the military. Mm-hmm. You can't do it.
You can't do it. The argument I got was, oh, but if they were really conservative, they would be. And I said, no, because that doesn't bear out in the evidence. And it's because they're not interested in fiscal responsibility and small government. That's not what they're interested in.
No, that's right.
What they're interested in is a government that is limited to, which is not small, but limited to military and police.
Yeah.
What they're interested in is maintaining and reinforcing the status quo or the hierarchies, enriching the hierarchy so that it is more ingrained. That's what they're interested in.
They need a police force to enforce private property within the borders, and they need a military to enforce their expansion of that private property outside of the borders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all they're interested in.
Yeah.
Oh, and keeping labor cheap. That's also what both the military and the police do.
Yeah.
Cheap labor overseas, cheap labor here.
Yeah, that's right. Because they can both be used as strike breakers.
Depending on where we're at, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we can't, like, it doesn't even seem acceptable to say, in the discourse, okay, but what if people keep getting into these fields and become unconvinced of anything conservative? Why can't we talk about that? People get into medicine and get convinced of things all the time.
Yep.
But it seems that it delegitimizes the social sciences if people get into them and then become convinced.
Because it's an adherence to, like, rather than being corrupted by an ideology once they enter the social sciences, what it is that they're corrupted by their ideology now, and they don't want to change that when they face evidence that's contrary to it. So, but I don't know why we can't, why society can't have that honest conversation, but
I don't know either. Is it because people do want to believe that conservatives might have a point, and if we reached a rational society, we could really just debate this? Is that what they think? But
that doesn't seem right, though.
I don't understand. Why is it that we can say, yeah, basically every doctor who goes through medical school becomes convinced of vaccinations? 99% of them. Yeah. And yet nobody says they are corrupted by vaccine ideology in medical. I mean, obviously there are people who do, but these are people who generally will dismiss science entirely. These are the same people who say that creationists, there's a conspiracy against creationists in biology, right? Right. But there's not. It's just that you're wrong.
Exactly.
But
yeah, it's gotta be.
If you point that out to people that except for the evidence doesn't back you up, they'll say like a creationist, oh, that's because the evidence is coming from ideologues. But if you say that's like a creationist, they will go, oh, so now you're just losing the argument.
So they cop out. That's what it is.
Oh, well, I mean, how many conversations have you had with a conservative where they don't? Fair, once they reach that precipice where they are about to actually be confronted with their
we just have to agree to disagree.
Every time. The time for discussion is done. You're not going to change your mind anyway. I'm not the one who said that. You said that.
Yeah, that's right.
Every time. But people will come to their defense and say, yes, but everyone in the social sciences being left means that conservatives will never listen. And it's like, but how do you fix this problem? How do you fix a problem that by doing the work, you will not be conservative? You can't fix. Yeah. Why don't people just say, you're fucking wrong? You're just wrong.
Yeah. I'm not sure why that's not allowed. It's got to be because they have power, right? Or there's enough of them that they feel like they have to be represented even though they're wrong.
Right? But that's useless and wasting their time.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah.
You don't in politics today, we don't entertain monarchists. I mean, we do, but we don't. We don't have somebody who's like, actually, we should just go back to a monarchy. That's not something people say in our politics.
No, that's not something people say even in countries where they still have a figurehead queen, right?
Right.
They don't say, yeah, well, we should actually just go back to the system where she makes all the decisions.
Right.
So
you can just say, if somebody comes out in politics and it's like, maybe we should have a king, everyone would just be like, no, you're wrong.
Instead, we get that reaction from when we point out that we're anarchists. We get told, oh yeah, well, you're just wrong. Why would anybody listen to you? Yeah. Except we're the ones following the evidence.
Every time, though.
Why is this happening?
I know. And I that was another, I got into it with somebody. I was like, okay, but my politics, I got here because I was a skeptic, because I followed the evidence. And they go, everyone says that. And I go, do they? And they go, well, you see, they can't because the academia is so ideologically left. I said, so then not everyone claims that their ideology is based in evidence, do they? Like,
no,
and
in fact, they do not. Yeah.
They'll claim that they're rational. They'll claim that, they have good reasons, but no, most people don't actually.
They'll appeal to common sense.
Common sense?
Yeah. My beliefs are based on common sense. Like, of course, people working at McDonald's don't deserve $15 an hour because that's just common sense.
Yeah, that's just common sense. Or, no, we can't change things quickly. That'll just cause too many problems. We have to do it slow. And it's like,
just common
why?
Sense.
Why? Yeah, it's just common sense. If you change things quickly, bad things happen. It's just common sense.
Right.
But it's like, but you don't have to.
But that's not
people, because their society collapsed instantly, they made gift economies immediately. Yeah. Immediately made gift economies. It just works. But
and they know that they can manipulate it in the other direction. Like in a disaster situation, they can go in with a military and enforce a capitalist dictatorship, and it works perfectly for what their needs are. They know they can do that.
It does force people back into the system, doesn't it?
So if there's a collapse and we have a mutual aid network set up and we can all just take care of each other quickly, we can do that, and it's actually going to be beneficial to everybody. But they can't.
It works very well. No, they can't. That's why they will send in the military to prevent looting.
Yeah, that's right. Looting, which happens to be the neighborhood collecting food from burnt out buildings and stuff. Yeah, storefronts and sharing it with their neighbors.
Even the owners of said buildings.
Yeah, that's right.
As long as you do not change the system, because if they bring in the military and they enforce this dictatorship, then it will force people back into the system. They will have to go back into the system to survive. If they didn't do that, then people would just be like, oh, so we can just keep doing a gift economy? Great.
Yeah. We can just continue to take care of each other.
Because people are really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
They're really good at it. People are very good at taking care of each other. You like how I got like a little allergy thing going? Thanks for that, buddy. I'm not as allergic to him as I used to be. Don't know why, but sometimes he still gives me little red spots. That's all right. But
yeah,
it's just but we'll be the ones called utopian. I've been seeing that a lot with land back. They'll call it magical thinking.
Right.
Where like I saw one today that was like, if we achieved land back, we would have global or climate change reversal. And it's like, and people are like, that's just magical thinking. It's not going to happen just because we do land back. I'm like, no, it's because that's what land back accounts for and plans. Like,
right.
They're not just saying that Native Americans, first of all, all Native Americans, all First Nations people don't consider themselves to be one people. Yeah. Because they're not. So like it's there, but they're
that's
not
why it's
saying
First
that
Nations.
First Nations. They don't consider themselves one people. They don't believe that they are somehow incapable of these things. What they're doing is building an entire philosophy in response to colonialism and to repair it, to repair the damages colonialism did. So it is a coalition of peoples to repair the damage of. So of course, climate change would be a major, and following the evidence that could actually reverse climate change.
Yeah.
Which there is evidence we could do. Could.
Not good, huh? It's not going to happen.
But you'll see people say land back and hear these claims without reading a damn thing and go, Native Americans aren't magically better people. And it's like, that's not what they're fucking claiming.
They don't have to be.
They don't have to
That's the point.
They specifically have done philosophy and study and science around the effects of colonialism and said, this needs to be undone. What would we need to do to undo it? That's what Land Back is about. But no, they'll sit there, like, people seriously think that, like, it's still just white genocide. Even people on the left, it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Like it's from, I don't want to single out Marxists, but this is who I hear it from quite often, is that it is a utopian, and it's, sure, except for Vosh. Although I think he says he's a libertarian socialist now.
But that's an anarchist.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just another word for anarchist. It's literally the same ideology.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so they say that it's
because of course he does that. Of course he says that. God damn it! Because he doesn't fucking understand. Sorry, I know. It's just that he in particular he gets under my skin. Yeah, because of course Vosh would sit there and go, I'm an anarchist. And actually, not everyone should own their home. And actually, Land Back is white genocide. And so people go, okay, so you're not an anarchist. And he goes, no, I'm a libertarian socialist. And it's like, that's the same fucking thing. God, and people still take him seriously. Why? He doesn't even know what words mean. He thinks landlords are okay.
Yeah, that's not right. That's incorrect.
You can be anarchist and disagree on a whole lot of things.
But not on landlords.
But not on landlords. This is kind of a basic one.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
I have never watched a Vosh video in my whole life. And I have no idea. I just see things people post, and I saw that, and I thought, oh my goodness.
I started watching him, and I was like, I don't get the appeal. And then just tuned him out. And then like 2 years later, it's like, oh, he has said horrible shit repeatedly. And then I get that's not what he meant. And it's like, that's exactly what he fucking meant.
Yeah, I've got some people that I actually respect have said that he's taken a lot of he's grown since then, and that he's changed the way he speaks.
They say that about every time he says something terrible, and he does it all the time.
Yeah, that's not good then.
No, he just recently was accusing somebody who did not know she did not know she was going on to defend Land Back and anti-colonialism. And then he accused her of promoting white genocide because he said, well, what if all the indigenous people want to mass deport white people? And she goes, she goes, well, they don't. That's not what Land Back is or anything. So like, this isn't, but she goes, but I'm going to say that I do think that colonized people have a right to determine for themselves how they deal with their colonizers.
Yeah.
That has been taken by so many people to say that she was okay with genocide.
There's no white genocide, people.
There's no white
genocide.
There's Land Back. Colonizers vanish does not mean mass deporting white people. I need you to stop. Colonizer is a status. It is not an innate quality of a person. Yeah, it is a status. Right. And if no one can hold the status of colonizer, then there are no more colonizers.
It's similar. It's similar to the kill the cop in your head, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You say kill the cop in your head, and people go, oh, kill the cop in your head. That's bad. You're like talking about killing police.
How does that mean? No, kill the cop.
No.
Kill the cop. Yeah, like stop.
Stop policing people.
Yeah, stop policing people. Stop watching people do drugs and being like,
Yeah, and judging and looking down.
Yeah. It's and you can explain it and you can try to, but ultimately I think a lot of people are just more scared of change than they are the status quo.
Yeah. And to some extent I can understand that. I mean, like, I think about like the collapse that I feel is imminent, right? And
Scares me too.
It scares the shit out of me. I've got kids. I've got little kids. I've got a family that I got to worry about.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do in the future. Or how they're going to survive.
Mine and my partner's parents are aging.
Yeah, like what's going to happen to them, right? Like,
yeah. Like, how do I make sure that like my mom is taken care of? How do I do that? If there's no, society that I can lean on, or, one that is so dysfunctional as to be a new thing. And, I know people are going to roll their eyes, but I feel that my animals or my commitment to them is important. And
of course,
I worry about being able to take care of them.
Yep.
I worry about myself. And not having access to things like inhalers and allergy medicine. Yep. That's scary. However, you see, we would like to start making real radical changes so that collapse doesn't happen. You see?
Yeah, so it's not an actual collapse.
Yeah, we want things like inhalers and allergy medicine. Maybe we just make less toys.
Yeah.
Not no toys.
But maybe a few less.
Just some less toys. And no yachts. No more yachts.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no more yachts. And honestly, I know they look cool, but no more Lamborghinis. You don't need that shit.
It's not necessary.
Like, come on.
You know what, though? Sure, people can keep their vintage cars. They just can't use them for commuters.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd say because I don't think there's anything wrong with like being like a car guy or car person for fun.
Yeah, that's right. But building our entire society around cars was a mistake.
That's bad. Yeah, that doesn't work. It's real bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we're the utopian.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both utopian and also in striving for utopia will cause the end of societies? Wait, civilization. Wait, humanity? I don't know exactly what that end is that they're afraid of. But for some reason, people think that if you try for utopia, it's going to get worse. Right.
Well, yeah, of course. Changing things automatically is worse, right?
Well, you never know. The road to hell is paved with good intention.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, it is true that with good intentions, bad things can happen. So, but if we do good intentions and then there's an unforeseen consequence, then we change.
Yeah.
So that
but if we start off with
bad,
we might as well just start off with bad intentions, because if good intentions go bad, then bad things can happen.
Which is why capitalism is fine.
That's right.
Because
people are greedy.
Because people are greedy. So why not just have a system that has no consequences for that and actively encourages it?
That's right. Exactly. We might as well just have the worst system possible.
And also, if you don't have capitalism, that means North Korea. That's your choices. North Korea or capitalism.
Or definitely Stalinist Russia.
But no other leaders of Russia.
Nope.
Just Stalin.
Just Stalin.
Just Stalin.
Yeah.
Or Mao. Not that China's great.
No, of course.
No.
Yeah. But one could technically argue, and I'm still working on this, that China is mostly, the bad stuff from China right now is mostly a result of trying to participate in a global capitalist society.
I would argue that, and also they're also doing hierarchy.
Yeah,
they didn't flatten their hierarchies.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would say it's the same. I would say the same. The borders, racism, yeah, stock markets, state capitalism.
This is all still capitalism.
Yeah. I'm not to be a class reductionist. I'm just saying that like patriarchy, racism, borders, these they intersect with capitalism to reinforce hierarchies, right?
Yeah.
So patriarchy does work very well with capitalism. It's not to say that it's the same, but
they certainly lean on each other, right?
Yeah, they lean on each other. That's a good way to put it. Like they reinforce each other.
Yeah, because I don't want to pretend that suddenly we're in socialist societies and there's no patriarchy and there's no racism, right?
That's definitely not how we think things should work or would work, right?
Like, right.
But if we start addressing oppression in any way, we have to disassemble these hierarchies all at the same time. It's like, we have to build and disassemble. Build the new systems while we disassemble the old, and you cannot neglect any one of these systems of oppression. You can't do it. Otherwise, they're going to prop each other up still.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, like if we could just do the workers owning the means of production and change nothing else, then we're still going to end up in the same kinds of problems we're having. Yeah,
that's right. Like, I really like Richard Wolff's idea of like every workplace being a co-op owned by the workers, right?
Yeah.
I really like that, but that doesn't necessarily on its own solve climate change.
No, it doesn't.
You have to do the other thing too.
It doesn't on its own solve climate change. It doesn't on its own address, say, a workplace that's 90% men oppressing everyone who's not men in those workplaces. Right. Which is why, we have to address these things at the same time. Especially because if we can eliminate patriarchy, that's liberatory. That is liberatory for everyone. That's why we're opposed to patriarchy. Yep. Privilege doesn't mean it's good for these people. It means it's good for a very few while giving some a little less suffering as a treat.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what privilege means. It doesn't mean benefit.
No.
White supremacy doesn't benefit almost all white people. It gives them not as bad suffering.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's not me. I didn't make this up. Like, it's not like my own person. That's Martin Luther King Jr. talked about that shit.
And I believe that if someone wanted, we could provide evidence to this. I mean, we're just talking riffing here, but there's lots of evidence about these various things. Like, I
can find philosophers and Black liberation philosophers, otherwise liberatory philosophers, like of other nations. You know what I mean by nations.
But that's back. But that's back to our the humanities, sociology. These are left wing ideologies.
Yeah, no, they're left wing ideologues.
That's right.
It's not that they have been convinced by evidence or through scrutiny. No.
So we're full circle back to why conservatism is wrong.
See, it is circular logic.
Yeah, that's right.
Or that we just keep having the same arguments over and over because we can't get people to just be like, no, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah,
Thank you. Hi, Kat.
I've been trying to figure out other ways to convince people. Like, there does seem to be some inroads with people on like empowerment at their workplaces. And I know that this might not be the best place to do it, but it's with stuff like vaccine mandates. Because I have people at my workplace who refuse to get the vaccine despite our bosses making it mandatory.
Right.
So now the bosses don't have any power in this case. They can't hire new people because there's nobody to fill these spots.
Right.
So I feel like if I could word it correctly, I could get these guys on board with worker empowerment. But it's the wrong inroad, isn't it?
It is. You definitely don't want to empower vaccine skepticism.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I've convinced people of, say, anti-capitalism, I start with like, doesn't your life kind of suck? Not the parts you like, but the stuff you have to do to get to the parts you like. Doesn't those suck? Don't you feel kind of alienated?
Yeah.
And I start talking to them about those things, and I start speaking to them about in the language of oppression. And I have found that a lot of people will then start investigating oppression itself as a system or in systems. And then they start to realize for themselves what patriarchy is.
Right.
What white supremacy is, right? And I don't have to do a whole lot there. I think for me, if I start speaking in the language of oppression, this doesn't work on Twitter. But if I'm just talking to people, rather than talking about your workplace, which I think is fine, but we talk about, one of the things I like to say is, they need us, we don't need them. Yeah. And then people will be like, hey, what? That's a fun one. I'm just like, no, we don't need them. We know how to do our jobs. Yep. But, I think if we start speaking in the language of oppression, but don't you have to work to survive? And isn't that kind of fucked up? Yep. People will be like, yeah.
You have to work at a job you hate?
Yeah. And doesn't your job suck? And don't you work too much? And isn't that an oppression? Oh, wait, you're oppressed. And you know who else talks about oppression? Women and people of color and disabled folk. Yep. Could it be that they're and then once you start thinking about it in the lens of oppression, it becomes intersectional. You kind of can't help but start seeing it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm starting. It works with some people. The people who I tend to hang out with, though, are who I'd call high compassionate people, and they already care. They just hadn't heard these approaches yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. Online, I hang out with highly compassionate people, but in my day-to-day life, beyond my family, I mainly only see coworkers. Mm-hmm. And they're varying degrees of empathy and understanding. And sometimes to different groups than I would necessarily think they should be.
Well, and a lot of times, if we're being real, alienation, it reduces people's ability for compassion, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Especially in a lot of men, they're told that for the good of everyone, their families and society and everything, they need to be less compassionate, which further alienates them from being able to make those connections. And it causes suffering. It causes so much suffering for them. But yeah. Let's be real, alienation helps the system. Yep. In a lot of ways. So I don't know. It's really complicated. And neither one of us are going to do it ourselves. We're trying.
No, that's true. Yeah. We're trying where we can, but it's a collective effort.
It's a collective effort. We don't have the answers by ourselves. Yeah. Good. Thank God. But we couldn't.
That's right.
We couldn't anyway. Although if I did have power, I'm just saying Mitch McConnell and existence.
The end of sentence.
End of sentence. I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it wouldn't go well, but that's
actually it would.
Yes, that's right.
For everyone. But one. Fuck that guy. God. I hate him more than I hate Donald Trump.
I can understand that. The few times that I have to listen to his voice, I find it hard to restrain myself from breaking a window or something.
Donald Trump,
very hard.
Donald Trump can be either very exhausting to listen to, but sometimes he's very funny. Person, woman, TV, camera, right? That man says some very funny shit.
Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not so intentionally.
Most of the time not. He is a goober. But Mitch McConnell is not funny. Ever.
No. Just an evil person.
Ugh. Have you heard Jeff Bezos laugh?
I have not.
Can you
Yeah,
play
no, I don't think I
audio
have. Yes.
on the show?
Yep.
If I send you something, okay.
Play.
Okay, it's kind of a nerdy laugh. It's fine.
Find it, by the way. It's
That's supposed to be bad fun. And then disclosure.
No. Wait till the robot arms.
What's that?
Wait till the robot arms, because he does a full mwahaha.
Oh, jeez. What an absurd human.
He is like morphed into an evil villain. He goes mwahaha now. It's like, what the fuck, man?
What are you doing, dude?
Oh, capitalism. It's good for all of us.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make you into an evil supervillain at all.
That guy's gonna choke Spider-Man.
With those robot arms.
With the robot arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I thought I was like, oh, you want to, like, speaking of evil villains, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. We kind of do current events a little bit on this show, and recently Jeff Bezos sent William Shatner into space.
He did do that. William Shatner seemed to enjoy it quite a bit.
Well, good for her. I mean, great.
Yeah,
sure. It would have been all right if he stayed up there. Like,
I know Shatner kind of sucks as a person, but honestly, I have no strong feelings about William Shatner in any direction. Like, I know he kind of sucks. Like, I've seen him speak, and he is very, very self-important. But, like, again, I don't have strong feelings to give to Shatner.
He is also an anti-vaxxer, so I've also got that against him.
Oh, I'm not shocked. Not at all. It should have been Nichelle? No. I'm forgetting there was a woman on Star Trek, which one of the many women on Star Trek that I'm thinking of that it should have been. It would have been cool. There was an actress who played Mae Jemison in an episode of Star Trek. Mae Jemison was the first black woman in space. That actress should have been the one to go to space. That would have been really cool.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Because, that would have been.
I may have seen a meme about that online.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. My friend did a photo shoot. One of my black friends did a photo shoot in dedication to Mae Jemison, in honor of. It was really cool.
Awesome.
I don't know, but.
Well, we've been chatting for about an hour.
Yeah, sure. I can fill time. I'm super good at this.
Yeah.
Was it nonsense? A lot of it, probably.
Maybe some, but a lot of it made sense. I think it was good.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So I guess if people want to find more from us, they can do that at skeptarchy.com. Our Twitter is at skeptarchypod, and we are at facebook.com/skeptarchy. And you can contact us at skeptarchy@gmail.com. And here we got.
Yep. That's my one Twitter.
Felicia Entwined.
Yeah. That's my sexy Twitter, if you want to follow me there for sexy stuff. For sex work. For sex work, everyone. When I say sexy stuff, I mean that I want you to come pay me to see more. Because I'll show you.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It's fun.
And I'm at Skeptical Lefty on Twitter and facebook.com/CJBrainstorm if you want to. I have been getting nothing but bots as friend requests for a very long time now. So
maybe just Twitter. Maybe just follow on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because Facebook, I posted my mural that I did on Facebook. And I opened Facebook once to, just look at likes or whatever. And immediately closed Facebook because every time I get on, it just it makes me feel bad. And then I haven't been back on Facebook in a week.
That's fair.
I can't do Facebook anymore.
It can be very bad sometimes. Although Twitter can also be very bad sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't spend as much time on either of them as I used to. I just don't have the patience for it.
You just can't do it. Yeah. I don't really, we talked about this on Utah Outcasts. The problem is that they make it addictive and we spend less time, but if we don't, but they, Twitter, the news came out that they are promoting right wingers. And if people on the left are not out there combating it, then, we cede ground to the right wing. But if we do get on there and combat it, then we're just fueling the engagement fire.
Yep. So there's not really a good way to win.
No. So I'm just going to keep being on Twitter, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, no, that works.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know, for your time too. I like doing shows. Sorry, I haven't been around for a minute.
That's all right. We will be doing this hopefully regularly. So
yeah, we will.
All right.
All right.